welcome to Better Biz. A really serious conversation that we're going to have today is really around the idea of dealing with death. And it's something that we all have to deal with, but particularly a business that has to deal with it is a funeral home. And we've got Diane from Elite Funerals joining us today.
Hi, Anthony. Thank you for having me here.
Diane, there's often a difference between honouring the needs of the deceased and then honouring the family's wishes. They're not necessarily completely aligned. How do you actually deal with that scenario? And particularly, who is the funeral for? Is it for the person who can't be there because they've deceased, or is it for the family?
The funeral's for the family. The funeral is about the person who has died, and it's for the family. And this is a really easy question to answer, because when I get people to consider what the person who has died has said about what they want versus how they feel about that decision, what action are you going to take in planning the funeral service that's not going to give you a regret 6 months down the track? So think about for a minute that that the person who has died has said, I don't want any flowers on my coffin. You can meet that need really, really well. You can have a coffin with no flowers and have a funeral service. But there's something in your heart and there's something in your emotion that you want to show your love with flowers. And flowers are a way of showing love, I believe. So why don't you walk up to the coffin with a flower and put it in the coffin with them? Or just put one rose on the coffin. Because the person who has said, I don't want a lot of flowers on my coffin, probably is saying, I don't want you to waste money on flowers at a funeral. So they've met the need. They feel they've done as they were instructed to do, but they've also met their emotional need by giving a flower to the person who has died. That's just one example of that sort of thing.
I imagine there can also be the other extremes where some people express that they don't want a funeral service, and then it comes to the family and the family actually do want a funeral service. Or I imagine there's probably even cases of vice versa.
Yeah. Don't want a funeral service rarely means that they don't want a funeral service. It's almost like the question when the phone rings at the funeral home and someone says, how much is a funeral? They don't want to really know how much it is, but they don't know what else to say. So coming back to I don't want a funeral service can really be a fear of no one turning up. It can be not wanting to burden your family with needing to attend and organise a funeral service for you. It could be about money. So we have to explore with our clients really what that person meant when they said they don't want a funeral service. Because unless I ask them the question of, well, what do you think Dad meant when he said that? They're not going to tell me because they haven't actually thought about it themselves. So let's talk about what Dad meant. And then you will get from them either it's a concern about price, or it's a concern about burdening them. It's a concern that, when I'm dead, don't worry about me anymore. Just, put me in the back garden or put me in the garbage bin or something. People say these odd things. And often trying to release your family from the burden of a funeral service by telling them that you don't want a funeral service places more burden on them, because their hearts want a funeral service for you. Their hearts need to say goodbye. Their hearts need to have ceremony. Their hearts need to round off and finalise your life. But they've got this in the back of their head. You're saying, I don't want a funeral service. I don't want a funeral service. So they're battling with that that voice of yours that you gave to them against what their heart and what their emotions need to have for you. So generally we will find a very pared down middle road sweet spot there where we can possibly have something like some time in the chapel without a celebrant, often the idea of having a celebrant speak of them is what they think a funeral service is about. So if I say to the family, imagine you've bought this space at the crematorium chapel, it's yours to use for half an hour. It doesn't mean you have to have formality surrounding that. You could have the coffin in place, either open or not open, and just sit around in a circle. We can put on a whole playlist of music and lightly in the background, and you can just talk amongst yourselves. Imagine it's like spending time in the lounge room with Dad in his favourite chair and you're all just sitting around having a chat. Often that turns out to be the not a funeral service.
Diane, thanks so much for joining us today. Really appreciated all your insights. What's the best way for people to get into contact with you?
Well, people can contact us 24 hours a day, 7 days a week on 9787 4677 or visit our website elitefunerals.com.au.